Chapter 298. Returning to the Heavenly Tao. Elder Dan, why don't you kill him? Kang Chon asked with doubt in his heart. After receiving the inheritance from the Force God Temple, his soul had metamorphosed a few levels, so he was able to easily discover that evil soul hidden within Li Chunjia's body. Originally, he was prepared to kill this evil soul along with Li Chunjia, gonna killing him, but he was stopped by Emperor Dan. Swish! Emperor Dan's Yuanying came out from Kang Chon's body as he stared blankly in the direction Li Chunjiao had disappeared. His eyes filled with sadness. Didn't you say that taking advantage of someone's danger isn't your style? Emperor Dan faintly asked back. Kang Chon froze, then laughed. My style is for people of my own generation, for an old guy like him. It's best to drop and settle early. Haha. Emperor Dan smiled gently at his words, though he sighed. Leave him to me. This is the agreement between me and him. Kang Chon was stunned, then asked with some curiosity, Elder Dan, what exactly is the relationship between you and him? He detected that there seemed to be more than just a simple friendship between Emperor Dan and Chon Xingzi. You want to pry into the old man's affairs too? When did you become so nosy? Emperor Dan laughed and cursed, then turned into a ray of light and entered Kang Chon's body. Kang Chon took to the air and headed towards Fengdu City ********. On the way back, the Dan Emperor told him a story. A long time ago, a village was attacked by a demonic beast, and all of the village's several hundred inhabitants died tragically, with only 2 teenagers playing in the mountains escaping death. The 2 teenagers were very sad. They swore to avenge the death of their loved ones. But the demonic beasts were not an existence they could fight against, so they joined a sect to learn the cultivation method. One of the teenagers was very smart, and in 10 years, he stepped into the Yuanying stage and became the absolute genius of that sect. The other boy was very stupid, but with the help of the smart boy, he also entered the Jidan stage. After their success, they returned to the village and killed all the demonic beasts within a radius of 300 miles near the village. After taking revenge, the 2 teenagers began the long road of cultivation. The smart teenager, because of his superior talent, finally joined the Heavenly Tao sect. The stupid one has no chance to join the Heavenly Tao sect, but he has a strong heart and has been secretly cultivating hard. The Heavenly Tao rewarded him for his hard work, and in a strange encounter, he obtained the inheritance of an alchemist. It was then that he realized that his talent was above alchemy. With his powerful talent in alchemy, the stupid teenager ended up becoming a powerful alchemist. Although not from a famous family, many people in the cultivation world honored him and respected him, just to beg him to make a pill. And the smart one teenager, with his excessive talent, ended up becoming the guardian elder of the Heavenly Tao sect, one of the top overlords in the cultivation world. That stupid teenager is you, Elder Dan, isn't it? After hearing this story, Kang Chon asked. Haha. Dan Emperor smiled without saying anything. What happened afterwards? Kang Chon had already learnt from Emperor Dan that because of his greed for the star-absorbing technique, Chon Xingzi had ended up going overboard and was besieged to death by many experts of the righteous path. His heart wasn't actually bad. It was just that he was too obsessed with cultivation, coupled with his innate arrogance, which made him think that he was completely capable of resisting the demonic thoughts of the star-absorbing grand technique. Emperor Dan sighed. Chon Xingzi was so obsessed with cultivation that he didn't hesitate to look through the demonic techniques and eventually fell into the demonic path. He once told me that if one day he fell into the devil's path, he asked me to kill him with my own hands. Emperor Dan said softly. Kang Chon was silent. From Dan Huang's story, he was able to appreciate Dan Huang's feelings at this moment. That kind of helplessness and sadness, I'm afraid that it had already continued for 1,000 years. If I become a demon, kill me with your own hands. 1,000-year-old command. It was that heavy promise to kill to prove love. Emperor Dan was silent. His Yuanying sank into the reverse heavenly cauldron, No more words were spoken. Only a thick sadness and a faint sigh lingered around Kangchon. Hurricane wind hunting. Robes inspired. Kangchon is also silent. He traveled at great speed, like a meteor, disappeared in the sky. Fengdu City. Kangchon and Xiaojin met at the Haoyu residence, and the two of them then stayed here. The battle with Li Chonjiao was Kangchon's most tragic battle to date, and apart from the hidden star-absorbing technique that he had not performed, he had used almost all of his strength. Even though he had killed Li Chonjiao in the end, he had also suffered serious injuries and needed several months to recover. During this period of time, Little Gold had been protecting him, and during this time, Haoyu Jushi had also come to visit, and seeing that Kangchon was healing, he did not disturb him. Kangchon is dead. Yellow sky is not alive. Heavenly Tao. Heaven has lost its way. The ethereal sound shook the heavens, and the souls of everyone in Fengdu City trembled. Although the people were terrified, they didn't panic because they were already used to it. Ever since 3 years ago, the voice of the goddess had sounded once a day, rain or shine. In the middle of the house where Kangchon was, Xiaojin frowned as he looked in the direction of Fengdu Mountain, his face full of indignation. This damned goddess, when did my brother die? Humph. Kangtian has died. Not to mention Xiaojin annoyed. Is Kangtian himself every time he heard the goddess say this sentence. All feel heart-cautious panic. Feel like it is cursing himself. Kangtian has died. Yellow sky is not alive. Heavenly Tao. Heaven has lost its way. The pale and ethereal voice once again spread throughout the entire Fengdu city, even louder than before. And now everyone's faces changed, and many strong people even rose up into the sky, looking away in the direction of Fengdu Mountain. What's going on? Isn't it once a day? Could it be that Mount Fengdu has changed again? Or maybe the goddess is going to come out? The Kang heaven has died. The yellow heaven is not alive. The heavenly Tao. The heaven has lost its way. The ethereal voice came once more, and after that, every half a quarter of an hour, it would sound once more. At that moment, within Fengdu City, everyone was shocked, and every face was filled with worry. There was a change in the goddess. Could it be a symbol that she was going to come out early? No cultivator who had participated in the blood sacrifice ceremony on Mount Fengdu would have forgotten the might of the goddess. That overwhelming stance that looked out of the world, and it still shook people when they thought about it. If a powerhouse of this level were to plague the world, it would be a disaster for the entire flood continent, and they, the cultivators of Fengdu City, would bear the brunt of it. Ever since the blood sacrifice ceremony, the entire Great Tang Kingdom knew that the corpse-catching sect was performing a devilish ritual, and that they were going to resurrect an ancient powerhouse. However, this was permeated with countless dangers. Once the heavenly devil invaded the body of the goddess, then the one who was resurrected would be a demon god who only knew how to kill. Since then, the cultivators of the Great Tang Kingdom have been in fear and trepidation every day. Now, the words of the goddess were constantly ringing out. Did this symbolize that she was going to come out early? Inside Fengdu City, a strong person rose up into the sky and looked towards the direction of Fengdu Mountain, looking away from each other. Everyone's eyes were filled with worry. They didn't care if the corpse-catching sect would be strong or not. They only hoped that this disaster wouldn't affect them. Hey, what happened? Little Gold similarly rushed up to the sky, frowning as he looked in the direction of Mount Fengdu. He was very scared in his heart for that terrifying goddess. It was a fear that came from his soul. Little Gold, is your brother better? An old voice rang in Little Gold's ears. Then an old man in blue stepped into the air. It was Haoyu Jushi. My brother. Little Gold was ready to say that he was still not well, but immediately his expression changed. His eyes looked towards the pale sky's house, and he said in surprise, "Brother." In the house, a domineering figure rushed up into the sky and appeared next to Little Gold and Resident Haoyu. It was clearly Kang Chon, who had recovered from his injuries. "Thank you for your concern, Jushi. I've recovered all of it. By the way, what's going on here? Why is the Divine Maiden's words ringing out so often?" Kang Chon first thanked Resident Hao Yu and then asked. 5 months had passed since that battle with Li Chonjiao, and during this time he had already repaired all of his injuries. And his cultivation had refined. From the early 7th layer of the Yuanying stage, he had advanced to the peak of the 7th layer of the Yuanying stage, and was not far from breaking through to the 8th layer. Of course, the biggest gain this time was the breakthrough of his 9 revolutions Zhuanggong, which had been promoted from the middle of the 4th layer to the peak of the late 4th layer. The reason why the 9 revolutions Zhuanggong had progressed so quickly was because the battle with Li Chonjiao had caused his fleshly body to suffer heavy damage and undergo a breakthrough metamorphosis, which was a chance that could not be sought. "Kang Chon, your cultivation is almost catching up with old me." Hao Yu Jushi felt the aura on Kang Chon's body that had clearly strengthened greatly, and couldn't help but look in awe. The talent displayed by this youth in front of him gave him the feeling that he had lived a life of a handful of years until he was a dog. "Ha, Jushi overpraised." Kang Chon laughed lightly. In fact, he was still very excited in his heart. This breakthrough in the 9 turns Zhuanggong had made his physical body even stronger, almost comparable to a medium-grade treasure. After the two of them were polite, they began to talk about the Divine Maiden's mutation. Hao Yu Jushi's face was very grave. He said in a deep voice, "Just now, I went to scout around Fengdu Mountain, and I found a woman who looked like the Divine Maiden flickering away amidst the boundless yin qi. I don't know if it's just a misreading on my part, or if the Divine Maiden really did come back to life." Kang Chon's eyes stared at what he heard. He instantly thought of Wang Ting. Listening to what Hao Yu Jushi said, Wang Ting seemed to have already entered the interior of Fengdu Mountain. Could it be that the drought demon was really going to be 3 corpses in one? At that moment, his divine thoughts probed within and entered the reverse heavenly cauldron to talk with the Emperor of Dan. "Kid, don't worry for nothing. The unification of the 3 corpses is not as simple as you think. The drought demon is an existence that is not allowed by the heavenly Tao. And once it comes out, there will be a heavenly calamity that will fall," Emperor Dan said. Kang Chon was relieved. As long as the drought demon hadn't come out yet, he could report the news to the law enforcement elder. And then the heavenly Tao sect would be free to prepare, so he wouldn't have to worry about it. "Brother, you've recovered from your injuries. Are we going to leave here?" Little Gold on the side suddenly asked. Kang Chon nodded, then turned to the Hao Yu Jushi at the side and said, "Jushi, I'm going to go back to the imperial capital first and inform the state lord of the affairs of this place, so we'll see each other again in the future. I hope that the next time we meet, we will be able to see that you have become a true disciple of the heavenly Tao sect." Hao Yu Jushi smiled and bid farewell. "Definitely." Kang Chon revealed a confident smile, then pulled up Xiao Jin, and his figure ****** came out, disappearing into the sky. Hao Yu Jushi watched them leave. Imperial capital. Immediately after returning to the imperial capital, Kang Chon went to the Heavy Iron King's royal residence to visit Grandpa and inquired about the recent movements of the Li family. According to what Grandpa had said, the Li family had been very disciplined lately, almost not going out of their doors, and the normally arrogant Li family's children, after that lesson, had all held back in their homes and rarely went out. The only thing worth paying attention to was that a month ago, Li Chonjiao suddenly returned and traveled to the Heavenly Tao sect with Li Yuanba. "Brother, it seems like the Li family is scared, so we can return to the Heavenly Tao sect without worry," Little Gold said with a smile. Kang Chon nodded, and then headed to the palace, reporting the matter of Heavy Iron City and the Divine Maiden's mutation to the State Lord. The State Lord was concerned about this and immediately dispatched 3 out-of-body stage powerhouses to Heavy Iron City. In addition, on the side of Fengdu City, the State Lord also sent experts to pay attention to it. But he was also very scrupulous about the corpse-catching sect and did not dare to go too far, so he could only pay attention to it secretly.